Hey everybody, it's GombletX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today we'll be playing another quick draft of Dominaria United, the latest and greatest format on Magic Arena right now. Without further ado, let's see where the cards take us today. Kind of a bummer of a rare here. The rare lands are generally worse than the common lands in the set because of domain, so that's a little bit of a bummer, but we have a couple of solid uncommons. Niall is very fun if you can get full domain. You can just draw the best card out of your top 5 every turn, and Terra Sunder is pretty efficient removal. 2 mana, a green and a black to exile any non-land permanent is great, and if your opponent happens to have a good artifact or enchantment down, like an enchantment-based removal spell, you get to spend only 2 mana on this, so Terra Sunder is pretty great. Probably my pick here. We do have some really good commons as well, but not quite to the quality of Terra Sunder, probably more along the power level of Niall. We've got a Miria's Outrider here, which is a big finisher for aggressive domain decks. If you're just beating your opponent up and then you drop this down, just jam in for 4 or 5 damage no matter how cluttered the board state is, that's really nice. It can also be a finisher for slower domain decks if they have a lot of graveyard recursion, because then you can chump block with this thing and reanimate it multiple times to just deal a bunch to your opponent. So Outrider's huge. Vine Shaper Prodigy, another great card, just good value. So those are our sweet commons, but not quite as sweet as Terra Sunder. I think that is where I'm going to go. Pack one, pick one. Pick 2 now, we have some more sweet removal, the Prayer of Binding. Not often are we going to play Terra Sunder and Prayer of Binding in the same deck, but I think they both fit really well into the more controlling domain decks, so I think that's a pretty great place to be, and even if we only play one of these cards, say we end up being white-blue or white-red or something, or just green-black, we have 2 different very powerful removal spells for whichever direction we go, so I like Prayer of Binding a lot here. Hexcatcher's cool, but there's not enough merfolk to really do anything with it in the set. Lagomos is a pretty fun build around, but I don't think it's quite as good as just taking that great efficient removal. I think that's pretty important in this format. There's a lot of very big creatures, a lot of pretty balmy uncommons like Lagomos as well. You're just going to want to have the removal for, so I like taking just efficient, powerful removal like Prayer of Binding right now and Terra Sunder, and that's what I'm going to do again here in pick 2. Speaking of efficient removal, we have a laundry list of options in pick 3. We have Runic Shot, Lightning Strike, and Destroy Evil, and I think I'm going to roll with Destroy Evil. This card's been a very big overperformer in the format. With the cost reduction creatures, every single color has access to large game-ending creatures like Molten Monstrosity or Yavimaya Sojourner. There are cards like Tolarian Terror in blue, Writhing Necromancer in black. There's just big creatures everywhere this can target, and sometimes your opponent plays an enchantment-based removal like a Prayer of Binding on your biggest creature, then they end up attacking in later, and you get to blow up the Prayer of Binding, get your creature back, block with that creature to kill another one of theirs. You can get a real big blowout if your opponent is playing enchantment-based removal, so huge fan of Destroy Evil. It's going to be my pick here. It's definitely better than Runic Shot. Much more of an actual fight between Destroy Evil and Lightning Strike here, but because we already have one white card, it's pretty easy to just keep rolling in the white direction here. Well, pick 4, we get a pretty phenomenal uncommon, one of the best ways to fix your mana in domain strategies. The Weatherseed Treaty is a 3-mana saga that lets you pull out a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle, so that both fixes your mana and ramps you up. It then creates a 1/1 Saproling, so it actually affects the board state while ramping you, and then the turn after that it can help you get a lot of extra damage in, giving a nice big +X and trample bonus. So the Weatherseed Treaty has played incredibly well in domain decks, and that seems like a pretty great direction for our deck to head in now. Green, black, and white at the very least, using Weatherseed Treaty to help get all of our mana to work well here. So pretty happy to see Weatherseed Treaty to kind of tie all of these picks together into one potential strategy. Some other pretty sweet cards in here, they just don't work exactly with what we're drafting so far. My number 1 here is this Take Up the Shield, just a very good combat trick, but after that, Rada would be a really fun, aggressive domain payoff we could try, but I would much rather get those domain enablers first, make sure that the mana is working out well, especially when it's the best domain enabler in the set. Speaking of good domain cards, here's a good domain payoff, a good domain finisher, the Miria's Outrider. Arena's giving us some pretty difficult choices here because Haunted Mire is guaranteed to be a great land for this deck, It's going to help get our domain up and help hit that Terra Sunder's kicker cost. So Haunted Mire would be pretty great, and we do need to get a lot of duels. However, I really like Miria's Outrider. In these archetypes, I don't know if I want to take a duel over the Miria's Outrider. I think, yeah, I want to scoop that thing up here. So Haunted Mire and Miria's Outrider are my top 2 picks. There's another great combat trick of another Take Off the Shield and Strength of the Coalition. Those are probably tied for 3rd best, but I'm going to go on Outrider here. Sunbathing Root Walla is a beautiful pickup. Rulik Mons is cool, but when you get to the more mid-range mana costs, when you're in Domain, you have kind of infinite options there. There's plenty of good, like 4-mana green cards, not to mention having access to most colors means there's plenty of stuff you can do there. When it comes to great cheap cards like Sunbathing Root Walla, there's a lot less options, so Sunbathing Root Walla is really good. The other thing that's so phenomenal about it is that it's going to be your early game creature to trade off into aggressive strategies while also being your late game finisher, turning into a 6/6 or 7/7 as you get later in the game. So Root Walla is just perfect for these decks. I am going to take it over Bite Down because we already have 3 very good, very cheap, efficient removal spells: Destroy Evil, Terror Center, and Prayer of Binding. So going to scoop up the Root Walla here. Another facet of the deck that we definitely need. Well, this pick's going to be pretty difficult for me. I'm probably supposed to be very diligent here and take a mana fixer like Geothermal Bog or Floriferous Vinewall, but I really like Destroy Evil as removal. And the worst case scenario that happens here is that we don't get enough good fixing to go for a full domain deck, and we just cut one Miria's Outrider. Like, if we get pushed into Selesnya, just green-white, so be it. We can have a good green-white deck here. We've got great removal for that archetype, and we can still use Weatherseed Treaty to pull out a swamp to cast Terra Sunder. So because we have a backup plan, if I don't get enough mana fixing here, I'm gonna go with the Destroy Evil. If I didn't have a very clear backup plan, if I were 5 colors of cards right now, probably be more diligent and actually take the mana fixing right now, but because we can have that backup plan of just falling into green-white, I'm going to take the Destroy Evil here. Now we can take the fine fixing of the Floriferous Vinewall, helps dig out one of our dual lands if we pick those up, and if we don't pick them up, it still helps us search for whatever basic land we need out of the top 6. If it's in there, we'll find it. If it's not in there, we still dug 6 cards closer to hitting that color of mana. So Vinewall, pretty important for domain kind of strategies. Solid fixer. Alright, well here pick 9 we have the weaker version of the Weatherseed Treaty, the Scout the Wilderness, which is good, but I do like taking dual lands higher than it, because it's not great tapping out for something that doesn't affect the board in any way. Is a little bit of a hard sell, especially when we have a card that does the same thing but also gives us a chump blocker at least eventually. Vineshaper Prodigy is a very good value play, but that actually requires the blue mana, so we really need ways to help get that mana, some fixing, before I want to pick that up. So I think I'm going to take the Aquifer here. Take the Aquifer. Now we have a Vinewall to help actually grab that Aquifer. Maybe help get some domain going. Okay, here we have a Deathbloom Gardener. This is very similar to the Scout the Wilderness, where I haven't been a huge fan of it, specifically because you don't just want all 5 colors of mana, you much more specifically want all 5 basic land types. So having a mana dork that adds mana of any color hasn't been the most helpful thing in the world. It's been fine, but I honestly think I'd rather just have a Gaia's Might, because this is such an efficient trick in domain archetypes, giving potentially +4/+4, +5/+5 for 1 mana. Sleeper's fine too, but I guess it gives us a way to use Vinewall, but it's pretty bad against like white decks with other tokens. I'm just going to take Gaia's Might. Now we can take this Runic Shot, wield all the way around. Feels good. Now we've got to take up the Shield that wield. These cards are just not being drafted highly enough by the bots right now. That being said, we're a pretty low creature count, but I'm still going to take this over the filler Vanguard or Wall. And if we get enough creatures, that will be a very powerful combat trick. And we'll just get another one. Take up the Shield again. Way better than this. You're almost never going to see it this late in a draft against human players. And Drawbridge isn't actually unplayable in this deck. Check out what we've opened up here in pack 2. Honestly, not very much for green or white. There's a take up the shield, but we know we can wheel that at this point, plus we already have 2. Sleeper is fine, but it's pretty filler. I think I'm probably on like Sunlit Marsh because we are definitely playing white and we are pretty much definitely playing the Terra Sunder, which wants that black kicker. So this helps with Domain and helps us get Terra Sunder into our deck. Silver Scrutiny is just going to be pretty difficult to cast being double blue, and while Heirloom Battle Hymn is pretty great removal, we're doing pretty well on that front still. We've got 4, 1 Prayer Binding, 1 Terra Sunder, 2 Destroy Evil, actually a Runic Shot as well, so potentially 5 if we run that Runic Shot. So let's go Sunlit Marsh here, I think. Okay, pack 2, pick 2. I love Sunbathing Root Walla. Its ability to get dropped on 2 and become the finisher later is really great. Sojourner's quite good as well. Sojourner can really help stabilize you if you're a more controlling Domain deck, because you can get to the late game where all of a sudden if you have 5 lands out, you have the mana to like spend 2 on a Destroy Evil and 3 on a Sojourner. And that can be a huge swing to help stabilize you. The Root Wallas are great in kind of a different way, where you just play them early and trade them off. But then if you draw them late, they're just straight up a good big finisher. So the Root Wallers are better, more consistent early game plays, but Sojourners are better late game plays because they're cheap and let you cast 2 spells in 1 turn more often, or more easily, while still having a real big blocker. There's also a Haunted Mire or Contaminated Aquifer, Haunted Mire being the number 1 for us. Our creature count's really low though, so I think we want to scoop another one up, especially because we're primarily just green, white, black. Our mana's not too difficult in this Domain deck. I think I'm going to go for my second Root Walla here. I just am a bigger fan of that card. I really like the flexibility there. Just consistently always being able to come out turn 2. And I'm very happy I get to actually just pass this Wingmantle Chaplain. The card is so good, it's probably technically best to just take it and start taking every defender that we see, but I don't care because I've just drafted 2 Wingmantle Chaplain decks in a row, and I know that nobody gets this Wingmantle Chaplain, it's just bots. So it's not like I'm letting some disgusting Defenders deck take over the world. I'm actually ridding the world of one Defenders deck by not drafting it myself, so screw you, Wingmantle Chaplain. This format would be better without you. It's not very fun playing against or with Wingmantle Chaplain, I've found in my experience. So, not a fan of the card. We're probably taking a Tangled Islet here. Tangled Islet, Flurfer's Vine Wall, or the Gibbering Barricade, I guess, being the main options, but let's go with the Islet here. More land types for Domain. Take up the shields everywhere, and a solid little Sacred Peaks for Domain, but Bortuk Bone Rattle is an incredible payoff for Domain strategies. Being able to spend 6 mana to get your 4/4 out and return a Root Walla or a Vine Wall or a Miryu's Outrider from the graveyard to the battlefield is always a huge swing in your favor, and it can absolutely turn games around and put you in a solid foothold on gaining the lead. So Bortuk Bone Rattle is an incredible card. There's no way I'm passing that. That is easily the pick here. Inscribed Tablet is basically the worst Vine Wall, so if you're in green, I try not to play that. I just pick up Vine Walls if I want it. Beachfront is fine here. Zaro Janin is fine here, but we don't have a lot of creatures, so it's not actually doing much. We're not like going wide, getting a bunch of 1/1s and putting a bunch of counters on them. So I'm honestly just more happy with Beachfront, and that seems pretty easy. Cavalier is actually pretty good though, and we're mainly in green-white though. So we could do that. But now I've got Bone Rattle. I do really want that Domain high. Yeah, creature count's really low here, and I've got some very filler stuff like Clockwork Drawbridge that I'm not a huge fan of without wall payoffs. I don't think we need a creature count that high. That would just let us play these Take Up the Shields, but we haven't actively been seeking these out. We've just been getting them like last pick. So we could just pretend that was just draft chaff in the sideboard. And then our early game is just like Runic Shots, Prayer Bindings, Terra Sunders, and then we just play really big late game stuff. That seems fine to me. I'll take this Beachfront. Citizen's Arrest, pretty good for us. If our opponents have Destroy Evils, that's going to be a big deal, and it seems like the bots don't take them very highly, so we just, fingers crossed, don't get paired up against too many white decks, because Destroy Evil ruins Citizen's Arrest's day, but it's still the best card in this pack, and the card we're going to take. Herbalist, Cavalier, Elfhame Worm, and Stall for Time are all fine. If I took the Wingmantle Chaplain, I could be on a really rude wall deck. I like the Mesa Cavalier. Giving you something that can actually block in the sky and gaining some life can be good for stabilizing. Keeping yourself alive throughout the early game. Pick 8, we've got a Rada or a Scout the Wilderness. I don't know if we have enough creatures to go for the more aggressive Rada build. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 creatures, and that's counting 1/1 Saplings and a 0/3 wall. Yeah, not sure how good Rada's actually going to be here with such a low creature count right now. I'd almost rather take a Mesa Cavalier than anything else, because we're very much just like Selesnya splashing every other color. Weird enough, but I think I'm just taking Cavalier. Just have 50 take up the shields, why not? Actually, Braid's Frightful Return's pretty decent value. Soul Tender is good with Bortuk. Could go for that. Just take a million take up the shields. For no reason other than I can in Quick Draft pods, I guess. No, if I can get a lot of creatures next pack, we can turn into just like a Selesnya aggro deck with a bunch of just great off-color splashes. We can honestly literally just be Selesnya aggro with a Bortuk Bone Rattle off of our black sources. So that's where I think the take up the shields could be pretty incredible, is if we just take a bunch of aggressive green and white creatures pack 3. We just become just a great aggro deck with massively good non-creature spells, particularly the combat tricks. We'd probably cut Runic Shot in that archetype, because we want all our removal to be able to remove blockers. But yeah, potential Selesnya aggro splashing Bortuk off of Weatherseed, Sunlit Marsh type lands could be a great spot to be. And Heroic Charge might get played there if I can get a million creatures. Nothing else in here will, though. But what? I kind of don't want to play Quick Draft anymore. This is going to be my last... Yeah, this is going to be my last Quick Draft of the format. If this is how the bots are going to draft. If I'm going to have to play against somebody that has 4 Wingmantle Chaplains because the bots are giving them away pick 11, I'm going to lose my mind. We have 2 Defenders, and we have Graveyard Recursion with Bone Rattle, and the only other option is an Herbalist, which is like filler. It would be good because we have triple take up the shield, so we want just filler 2 drops here. My lord, if that's happening... If this were a player draft and I got a pick 11 Wingmantle Chaplain, there's no possible way I would draft it, because I know I'm going to get past every single defender for the rest of history, no matter what. So I'm just going to go with what's objectively the right choice. If this were a player draft, because it's a bot draft, you don't know. Sometimes weird things happen. So maybe I won't get past every defender next pack, but it feels like I will. I'll definitely get past every take up the shield. I don't know if I want 4. We'll take a Vanguard, so we actually have creatures to cast the take up the shield onto. I'm not going to want a second Heroic Charge most likely, so I'll take a Skyrider, up that creature count, and now a Faith Bonder. Ooh, this pack is excellent. There are no defenders in this pack, but there is a Urg Spawn of Turg. Great if we can hit double black. That's a little difficult for us, so we're probably just going for Leyline Binding, which is very, very efficient removal with good domain. If you have 3 land types, it's 3 mana, so it's just an instant speed version of Banishing Light or Into the Spirit Realm, any of those removal spells that you'll remember from recent sets. So Leyline Binding, just incredibly efficient removal and domain, and I'm going to take it here. It's another Prayer of Binding. Well, take that over a Sunlit Marsh. Sunlit Marsh would be great for Bortuk. Probably the second best pick for us. Sprouting Goblin would be great if we're full domain, but we don't look like that. Again, we're primarily white-green with a black splash. So I think Prayer of Binding's the #1. Marsh is the second best. Third best might even be Academy Wall, because this stupid Wingmantle Chaplain that I'm probably not going to play. But we'll see. Another Academy Wall, but we've got our Givian Cavalier, which is a great aggressive white card. We also have a Queen All-in-All, which is nice in the archetype. Every time you make a token, you get an additional 1/1 soldier. We already have, or we only have 2 token producers, the Weatherseed Treaty and the Wingmantle Chaplain. So Queen all in all doesn't seem that great here. Gaia's Might is a great combat trick, but I've got triple Take Up the Shield. I have no room for more good combat tricks. We'll take an Argivian Cavalier. Alright, Resolute Reinforcement seems good. Maybe, it seems like every single pack in this draft was just preloaded with a Take Up the Shield, so it's not even necessarily that the bots aren't drafting them high enough. Maybe every single bot in this draft bot has 3 copies of Take Up the Shield, and they're just like, I don't have room for more. What is going on? Resolute Reinforcements here, get more on that aggro still, I think. Sacred Peaks helps splashing the Mirror's Outrider, though, which is interesting, but still wanting to up that creature count, beat some people up with our multitude of Take Up the Shields. That's a Tachova. We have 3 blue sources already. It's got to be the pick. Even if we are green-white aggro at the core, this is a 7-mana bomb. We play this when we have 6 lands on board, and then play land drop for turn and start turning everything into 3/3s. Probably take Tangled Islet here. Rona's Vortex is good interaction, but it's kind of hard for us to cast, and we have tons of good interaction that's really easy for us to cast. We have double Prayer of Binding, Leyline Binding, Citizen's Arrest, Terror Sunder, double Destroy Evil, and Runic Shot. We're probably not even playing all the interaction we have, so I'm taking lands over pretty much any removal spells from now on at this point. I think I like Cavalier better than Love Song of Night and Day, but it's really close. So Love Song of Night and Day is essentially a 2/2 flyer, and you get a +1/+1 counter onto another creature. So it's 3 power and toughness for 3 mana. Argivian Cavalier is the same, 3 power and toughness for 3 mana. It gives you a 2/2 on the ground and a 1/1 on the ground. However, the Argivian Cavalier actually spreads your board state out. It gives you an additional creature, whereas the Love Song of Night and Day requires that you have another creature for Chapter 3 to get the full value. So it's a little more narrow, whereas Cavalier really sets up your board state. And the Enlist is not quite as good as Flying, but it's still a pretty good mechanic. Pretty good ability to help you attack into 4/4s and stuff by just tapping down an additional 2/2. So I think I take Cavalier over Love Song, but I'm actually not sure. I haven't been put to that test before. Knight of Dawn's Light's going to be absurd with triple Take the Shield. That's an easy aggressive pick here. Some great Selesnya aggro nonsense going on now. We're not going to play this Wingmantle Chaplain. Sorry, Universe. I'm not going to play Drawbridge either. I'm very aggressive. I don't want to dump mana into doing that. Faith Bonder is very low power for the cost. Vinewall, we probably still play Vinewall for Techova and Bortuk to be easier. But I want to play exclusively my most aggressive creatures. I only have 14 creatures, though. I might have to play Faith Bonder just because I don't have a lot. Do I want Captain's Call, or do I want another slow, big, late-game creature? I don't actually have a great way to use the Captain's Call. I have 1 Heroic Reinforcements, or Heroic Charge. I always get that name mixed up. Not a ton of ways to make these 1/1s that valuable and that useful. I don't have any Argivian Phalanxes. Anything like that. I think I just want a lot of good 2-mana single-handed aggressive creatures for Take Up the Shields, which I kind of already have. The late-game creatures, I think I want them to just be also just big individual threats, so while Shalai's Acolyte isn't super exciting, I think it's still probably the best pick for us here, because I don't think we're going wide enough for Heroic Charge. I already have 1 and it's in the side, and Stall for Time is a good card, but our non-creature cards are so quality that I really just want to up this creature count and up the quality of the creatures as well. Non-creatures, we're set. We're set for life on non-creatures, so let's take the Acolyte here. Hexbane Tortoise might have to be the pick here, which is pretty awkward. It's that or a Heroic Charge that I won't play. I don't think I'll play Barkweave Crusher either. I have a lot of 3-mana creatures. It might have to be Barkweave Crusher just for mana cost considerations. I don't want every single thing in my deck to cost 3 mana. Okay, not playing any of this. I mean, I guess I take the Wall because I have a Wingmantle Chaplain that I got pick 11, and 3 Take Up the Shields I got pick 12 each time. I actually just take another Herbalist at this point. And a nice late Phalanx. That's actually perfect for this deck. That's so good. Alright. Weird draft. Quick drafts are always weird. It's very, very hard to replicate how humans draft a format with AI. Just strange things happen. So we ended up like Selesnya domain, just like green-white aggro, just playing Bone Rattle and Terra Sunder and Techova. We might not even need Vine Wall if we just use all these duels. For blue sources, I've got 4 blue sources for Techova, and I don't need the blue source till I have 7 lands total. So I don't even need Weatherseed Treaty to be pulling out an island, and then I have the 1 swamp to pull out off Weatherseed Treaty to up domain, plus that gives me 4 black sources because I have Aquifer, Sunlit Marsh, Swamp, and the Weatherseed Treaty to pull out the black source for the Bone Rattle plus Asunder. Our mana looks fine here. I don't think we need Vine Wall. I think we can run just only the creatures that actually attack. And that puts us to 18 creatures still, so we get to cut another one. Probably one of the 2 Faith Bonders, and we still have 17 creatures, which is a lot, so we could cut a Skyrider as well, because I have no red sources, and I don't really want to make room for those. I guess it's a 2/2 flyer for 3 mana, which isn't the end of the world, but I like the Cavaliers better. I've got 2 of those. Yeah, we'll cut a Skyrider and a Faith Bonder, I think, go 16 creatures here because our non-creatures are so good. Runic Shot is not the greatest removal here because we want to be able to just clear out untapped creatures. We want to just clear the board and keep attacking. I like Take Up the Shields better than Gaia's Might, I think, because they help erase a lot more easily. We're never hitting 5 land types, and our average is going to be 3 most of the time. It's going to be like Giant Growth. I think I like Gaia's Might out. Citizen's Arrest double white is a little difficult, and I still have double Prayer Binding and Leyline Binding, which I think both of those cards are better than Citizen's Arrest, and we have 3 of those, and Terra Sunder. And then I have to cut 3 more cards. I'm so tempted to just cut triple Take Up the Shield, but I don't want to. I like how this looks during combat. With triple Take Up the Shield, I want just individually somewhat big creatures. I don't want really the go wide stuff, so Reinforcements feels a little weaker than normal. Enlist feels really good with Take Up the Shield. So I definitely want I actually might want to cut Reinforcements and put another Faith Bonder back in, weirdly enough. I can probably just cut this Crusher. We're getting pretty low on creatures now, though. I'll cut one of these Take Up the Shields, and I think this will be the deck. Just slam down 2 drops, slam down 3 drops, and then just keep bashing in and take up the shielding, and then clear everything out from that point on until our opponent dies. And if somehow none of that kills our opponent, we have the easiest splashes in the world for a Bone Rattle and a Techova to end things. Feels great. Phalanx should probably cost 4 mana on average at the most expensive, so that fills out the curve well, as well as being a great target for the Take Up the Shield. I don't like the Acolyte much, but I don't want to lower this creature count really any more than it already is. Could cut the Acolyte for the Reinforcements. That'll make the deck a little bit faster and make Phalanx a little faster. Still have Techova Bone Rattle. Could also cut a land here. I think I would rather just keep Acolyte than any of those things. I think this is going to be the deck. Alright, here we are with the deck we'll be playing today. It's a pretty weird one. We started as a more domain-centric deck, potentially, with like Weatherseed Treaty, Terra Sunder, good white removal like Destroy Evils, and some Sunbathing Root Wallas. And we got like a Boar-Tuck. And then all of a sudden we just kept getting Take Up the Shields like last pick. And a bunch of Prayer of Bindings as well, and started getting some good white aggressive creatures like Knight of Dawn's Lights and Argivian Cavaliers. So we became kind of Selesnya aggro at the core here. So we have this really weird deck where we can pressure our opponent early game with some great 2 and 3 drops, and then use some Take Up the Shields to really, really beat down. And then we remove any of their creatures they play trying to block after that. So we have a really nice aggressive start, just jamming in for a bunch of damage, clearing everything they put on the board to block, and then all of a sudden, once we're done doing all that, if that somehow doesn't kill them, we're just domain finishers? Tachova, Steward of Tides, and Bortuk Bone Rattle with a really good mana base to help support those, with 4 blue sources for Tachova and 3 black sources for Bortuk Bone Rattle, plus a Weather Seed Treaty to tutor out that swamp. So, strange deck here. I've never drafted a deck quite like this before. I've never done the Selesnya aggro thing, and the Selesnya aggro thing is usually much more like token production than this, but yeah, we'll just see how it runs here. We've got a lot of quality cards here, quality removal, quality tricks, a few high quality aggro creatures. Should be a pretty decent deck, but was a weird draft all around. We got a pick 11 Wingmantle Chaplain in the middle there as well, which I didn't even end up playing, but I don't know what the bots are doing these days. Well, let's see how this deck does as we head into the gameplay. We will be on the play here. This is a really slow hand, so we have to rely on drawing our good late game plays, but we have Destroy Evil and Leyline Binding with 4 land types. So I'm going to keep and try to be the control deck here. This could pan out poorly for us. If it does, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot here, keeping a really slow hand and a really somewhat aggressive deck here. But again, I think the power level of the cards in here is good enough to try to play that more controlling role. And I think I'm tutoring a forest here rather than a swamp, because I've already got all the land types that I can have, and this will help me have double green in case I hit Tachova, so I can cast anything. I already have my 1 black source, I already have double white, so let's get the 2nd green in case we draw into a Tachova. We are playing against another domain deck. They're going to start with a Relic of Legends to help with their mana. We'll get a Sapperling, which is going to let us cast Phalanx this turn, which is beautiful, so I can hold on to Acolyte and actually put counters on that later in the game by kicking it. So, things are working out alright so far. Our opponent hasn't really done anything yet. Now we have a board state to start attacking in with. Plenty of ways to make sure the attack works well. We can use a combat trick, or if we know the combat trick isn't going to work out, we have 2 different removal spells to use instead. Unfortunately, our opponent is just going to use their own removal spell and kill our 4/4, but we'll still get a nice trample in with this Sapperling here. And then I suppose I'll play a Vanguard. Vanguard is cheap enough, I still get to hold up the Destroy Evil, Leyline Binding, and take up the shield. Whichever one of those cards ends up being the most useful to us, we'll probably cast here. Just start jamming in with Vanguard and something else. A 1/1 Queen all in all. Honestly, I don't think I'm casting anything against that. Acknowledge Sleeper. Now that they have 2 creatures, Queen all in all is a tiny bit better, but if they play any token production, the Queen is going to pop off, but I think I'd rather just kill Sleeper and attack both into their 1/1. Okay, if they blocked, I could use Vanguard there, and if they don't block, I'll just hold all this interaction up. Might be a little greedy still holding on to Acolyte and waiting for 7 mana, but I like having all of my interaction held up here. Scout the Wilderness, okay, so they are going to get 3 1/1s instead of 2. That's not that big of a deal. That makes Queen all in all big enough to die to our Destroy Evil now, and we can take up the shield if they get a particularly nasty block off of these 1/1s. And we get to stay aggressive here. Tear Asunder, so we still have removal if they play another good threat. Triple block means it's time to take up the shield, and we're still holding up Tear Asunder. Pass the turn. See if we can take our 1 Charismatic Vanguard all the way to victory. Joda's Codex, that is going to be very important to get rid of, or they're going to be drawing 2 extra cards per turn, so I am going to Tear Asunder on that. They do get 1 card drawn off of it for free, because I can't exile it before they get their draw. We'll wait for their end step here. A Johnny Sleeper Agent. That actually doesn't do anything until they have creatures out. I think I just kill a Johnny with my Sapperling even. No, I have to do 3 damage to a Johnny. Yep, they missed on a Johnny's plus. So they just scry a land to the bottom. So we kill their Codex and then attack a Johnny. And I've got the mana to kick this Acolyte, which means that I attack a Johnny with Vanguard and them with the Sapperling. Then kick the Acolyte.
The enemies of perfection win this battle.
They have 3 cards to play around with here, one of which is Urborg Repossession. That's a good one to have. If they don't have removal, though, Acolyte's definitely hitting them in the sky, and they're going to have to just chump block with Queen All-in-All. Yep, recast the Ajani. Dig for an out here, find another land to scry to the bottom.
More rally to our glorious cause.
Well, they actually had to tap the Queen All-in-All to cast the Ajani, so we just attack face for lethal. Alright, I will take it. Opponent flooded out pretty hard there. Ajani did his best to get those lands out of the way, but Ajani was not quick enough. And is going to be 1-0 to start off this quick draft. Alright, here in game 2, we've kind of got the polar opposite of the hand that we had in game 1. We've got a much more aggressive hand, really leaning into our cheap aggro creatures and our combat tricks instead of our late game powerful removal spells. So, pretty big fan of this one. This was kind of what I had an idea. Building the deck, at least during pack 3 when we started doing the full pivot to more aggressive deck building. Okay, I think I start things off with Herbalist for now, so we can set up our draws, gain life and scry here. We're also much less sad about Herbalist trading off early, whereas Rootwalla we would be a little unhappy with trading off early. But Herbalist, I'll just let it trade, keep the Take Up the Shield for later, and drop one of these Cavaliers, Argivian or Mesa. Got 4 lands already, probably don't need a 5th that badly, so I'll put it on the bottom. I'll take the trade if they go for it. They do not go for the trade. Let's get the untapped land out so we can play a 3-mana card this turn and a 3-mana card next turn. Cavalier is great with Take Up the Shield. The Argivian Cavalier is great with Take Up the Shield. The Mesa Cavalier is great at getting around most of what they might play. I think I'll go Argivian Cavalier. This gets around them playing the 4-mana 4/4 Reach, which is a potential play here, because this Cavalier gets to attack as a 4/2. Or a 2/4 flyer. That would also shut off my Mesa Cavalier, but not the Argivian Cavalier. So we hold up Take Up the Shield here, going into combat with this Cavalier tapping the Herbalist, and they probably don't block with Niall. If they do, I just let it happen. If they block with the other creature, we may Take Up the Shield here. I like drawing Destroy Evil. I like that a lot. They are 1 land type away from all 4 for Niall. Yeah, I think I wish I had another untapped land so I could Take Up the Shield and Rootwalla here. Yeah, I think I want to keep putting more creatures on board. I guess Take Up the Shield is committing just as much to the board as playing a creature here is. So if I play a creature, then I'm going to have 3 creatures on board, and if I save this creature, I'm going to have 3 creatures on board. This one attacks in against more things. So do I Beachfront or Aquifer? Beachfront, I need white sources more often than the black source. The only card I need the black source for at this point is Bortuk. If we draw into that, and we don't even have 6 mana for that yet. Ouch. That's going to be devastating. That guarantees they scry something from the top 4 to the top and draw a card. I do really like the Destroy Evil here, because now it's going to 2-for-1 them, but not really, because they already drew a card off of the combat research, so they already got their value back out of it. And they're holding up tons of mana, so they could have like a shore up here. I think I attack in before I do anything. That way if they have a shore up, they use it to kill my creatures out of nowhere. And I respond by killing Niall, which has ward 1. And then if they don't go for a shore up during combat, that means it's a good bit less likely that they actually have it here. So let's see. Bite down. Well, this works too. This works incredibly well also. Counter the bite down. And kill the creature, and kill the combat research, and scry that to the bottom. Now Rootwaller trades for Herbalist, which means they're basically 6/6 just traded for my 2/1, which feels really good. They're down to 3 cards in hand. 2 and whatever they top decked, which is a second Niall. I guess that works. They don't have a white source yet, but that's still a bummer. Got the mana to play a Cavalier and a Root Wall. I could play double Cavalier and just double block this thing, but that runs really poorly into any combat tricks, and there's a lot of good tricks in the set. So I don't think I'm going to double Cavalier for blocks. I think I just stay on the aggressive here, drop Root Wall and a Cavalier. I could chump just to stop them from drawing cards, but I'm at 27. If they play a Plains, maybe I'll chump. But if they're just going to scry 4 again, I probably just let it happen. Alright, Vine Shaper will draw them a card as well as providing them a solid blocker. 2/2 blocker here. They might even not attack. They might have to be on the defense, and they are going to be on the defense. These are great draws. I think I'm going to Phalanx before I do anything else, so I know I can drop Phalanx here even if a creature dies this turn. Okay. They have a 2/4 and a 2/2. I only need to get 1 extra power off Cavalier, and Root Wall is definitely big enough to attack in. So we attack in with these and we tap the Soldier. Whatever combat trick they have, so be it. I don't have ways to get around combat tricks, I just gotta let them happen. And get through them over time. Hit them for 6 or play a Cavalier. I think I play a Cavalier. Alright, no trick. Cavalier number 2. Very wide board state against an 8-life opponent. Four damage in the sky. Just need to get in 4 damage on the ground to find the win. And a single Root Walla does that, a single Phalanx does that, which means they can't make a good double block unless they have interaction in hand. Tachova takes over this game if we don't win it in this combat. If we can draw more lands, we still have more win cons. I think I attack with the 1/1 as well at this point, because they have to block Phalanx Root Walla to survive. Yep. Buff that Root Walla. They've got a burn spell here that's going to be very good. Shore up on the Badger, okay. It's not that bad for us, because we still kill the Badger, we just lose our 4/4. They have their own Root Walla, but they're at 3 life, facing 4 flying damage, and a Tachova without another land to play. We just get in there in the sky, and that is game 2-0 to start this quick draft off. Alright, here we are. Game 3 now. Awkward hand because we only have 1 creature. But other than that, it's pretty great. Very good interaction. The super good combat trick, the 2 great removal spells. Playing against a turn 1 walking bulwark is a little sketchy. Little sketchy. See what happens from then on. Blight Pile? Yeah. This could be a bad time. Could Leyline Binding this Blight Pile before it does anything. Feel I'm supposed to probably wait for like a Wingmantle Chaplain potentially. Oh my god, this is bad. Well, I mean, we saw in our draft pod the The bots like to pass Wingmantle Chaplain's pick 11, so I'm gonna assume any matchup against defenders is just gonna be disastrous. It doesn't look like the bots take any of them ever. At least they didn't in our pod. Yeah, we gotta just start clearing this stuff out one at a time so it doesn't just overwhelm us with life loss and just attacks in. Probably have to destroy Evil this barricade, but not necessary yet. Alright, this is pretty good for us. They're going to spend their turn just attacking with a barricade that I'm just going to blow up. Oh, God, no, that would be so bad if I did that option. We want the destroy a creature with 4 toughness option. They're down to just a bulwark. And a Knight of Dusk's Shadow. That has menace. Yeah, well, we've got vigilance. They've only got 2 power, so we might as well. Probably should have been doing that earlier just to send a message. Send in with the bulwark here? Yeah. Can't block either of those well. So we're going to take 5. 6. Buffing the Knight. Prayer of Binding. I think I get to gain the life off this. Yeah, we gain the life after the card is exiled. So we will actually gain life off the Prayer of Binding. Unless I target the Bulwark, which is possible. Yeah, especially if they play a Blight Pile, that might be worth it. Bulwark hits for 3 a turn, Blight Pile hits for 1 a turn. So I guess I gain 0 life and exile the Bulwark. If I... If I make the Faithbonder a 2/4, I can block this Bulwark forever. It's not like the best way to use this trick usually, but I feel like this might be the best line here, is now I can just block the Bulwark forever, so I'm just taking 2 a turn. I'm just taking Blight Pile damage, and it costs 3 mana a turn for them to do that Blight Pile damage. We exile the Knight so I can actually block things. There's a Argivian Phalanx. Probably should have attacked and then played Phalanx post-combat, so I'm threatening a second copy of Take Up the Shield. Because if my opponent's bots are anything like my bots, they will have seen 5,000 copies of Take Up the Shield throughout the draft. So they have to be worried that I might have like 6 copies. Braids is spooky. They can sack cards to make us sack cards, or they get to draw a card instead. So sack a land, we have to sack a land, do they draw a card? Sure, I'll sack a land. Weatherseed Treaty, that gets the green source. That's pretty big. Phalanx only dies if they double block, and then we kill Braids. Faithbonder we could do instead, but then Phalanx is tapped. So if they do double block and kill Faithbonder, they do get an attack in, but I'm at 18, it's probably fine. I think we Faithbonder in. That'll kill both if they block to kill. Oh wow. We're potentially killing both here. Yeah, straight up. They must have some really good graveyard recursion coming up. Not a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of how that combat went on board, but I'm very scared of what it means is coming up. If they were willing to trade Blight Pile and Braids. Yep, that looks like a recursion. They're looking over their graveyard. They're going to pick 2 cards back up and gain 3 life with the Phyrexian, or the Urborg repossession, not Phyrexian repossession. Oh, they go land Blight Pile so they can just play it immediately? Just leave Braids in the grave. Maybe they have even more graveyard recursion. I can Bone Rattle for 4. Only thing I can take is a Banalish Faithbonder. Honestly doesn't seem phenomenal. I'm probably just going to take a Knight of Dawn's Light. Or play a Knight of Dawn's Light. I could Bone Rattle and pick up Phalanx after it dies, I just don't get to put it on the board. I'm kind of okay with that. We can kill a Blight Pile or a Brawler. I think I would rather kill the Brawler. And then, yeah, we'll just Bone Rattle it back to our hand. If it counted the cost reduction, we could have put it on board, but it doesn't. Codex. Gosh, dang it. That's very bad for us. Opponent's going to start drawing 2 cards per turn. Pretty hard to win a game like that. Ooh, if we can hit a land, it'll get a lot easier. Bone Rattle can already attack in on this board state. The Sapperling turns into a 5/5 that can also attack in, so we'll put it on the Sapperling. And we Phalanx and Knight. There's no way a creature dies here, though. They're tapped out, so we can do it post-combat. But I guess, I mean, also they're tapped out. There's no reason not to do it post-combat. Or there's no reason to not do it pre-combat, even. Just doesn't matter. Opponent can't interact either way. I guess it could affect their decisions of how they want to block. They might think we're just out of cards after Phalanx. In which case they might be like, yeah, Trump might be fine. Probably not, but maybe. Still saving Tachiova for the last possible opportunity. We'll do that when we hit the 7th land. 2 Tachiova out of nowhere. Floriferous Vine Wall. That is not a bad one with Bulwark and Blight Pile down. Also digs another land out of the deck. Okay, they got their Codex draw as well. They've got 2 cards in hand now. Bone Splinters, rough. Goodbye, Argivian Phalanx. But, again, by playing our other threats first, that's 1 less removal spell they can use on Tachiova. We get to play a Root Waller for only 2, which means I can double pump the Knight, so it is safe to attack with it here. Will be a 4/4. Okay, they're going to force the pumps. And they may have instant speed removal spell here, but they just want to force the pumps first. Nope, just a chump block looks like. Deal some damage to us first. They are at 10 life, they kind of have to make some chumps now. Root Walla feels great, basically a 6/6, that'll kill them in 1 hit if it gets in. Opponent draws their extra card for turn off of the Codex. Terror Sunder on the Prayer of Binding to get the Knight back. So they basically just drew another Knight of Dusk Shadow, which is fine. So Knight of Dusk Shadow plus Bite Down. Pretty good draws for the turn, but I'm still feeling pretty confident about our position here, especially if we can just hit that 7th land. We're killing our opponent. And like 2 attacks almost no matter what. Without that 7th land, Herbalist is fine. Literally any creature getting drawn is fine. I want to send in the 1/1. If I send in the 1/1, they can kill it with a Knight. But if either of these gets in, my opponent dies, so they have to chump with Bulwark. Or no, I guess they can let Bone Rattle in. But yeah, if both gets in, my opponent dies. They can let Bone Rattle in, chump Root Walla, kill Sapperling with Knight, but then they're at 2 life, Tachiova drops, and definitely kills them next turn. This makes them dead next turn. If I hit a land. Plus I still have Herbalist to play. So this helps maybe get in with that 4 damage. Okay, no. Then we just get 1 damage in. And Bone Rattle will trade for the Knight, which seems pretty fine with me. So we clear out all of their blockers. We still have Root Walla, Sapperling, and Herbalist. Pass turn. There's their first draw for turn. Time for their second draw from Codex. Ow. That's a pretty good first draw for turn. And then second is a land. Alright, Tachova. Now is your time to shine. I've been waiting. They need to draw really well yet again, but they do have 2 draws per turn. Down to 11 cards left, so not only do they need to survive this Tachova, they need to find a way to kill us relatively soon at this point, or they could die to self-mill. Wow, Bone Rattle's pretty bad for us. I don't know how bad. I don't think they have removal in their graveyard they can bring back, but I'm pretty sure they can bring a flying blocker back. Or a reach blocker. I might be wrong. There's actually no flying or reach. Wow. I can get a braids though. Did you bring barricade? They don't have the mana to draw the card off of that, but they can have braids draw us, or braids let them draw a card, because I have to decline here because I have lethal on board only if I keep these creatures. So I need to keep these creatures and let them draw the card. If they top decked, oh my god, that's a good one. You've got to be actually kidding me there. I was going to say, then if they top decked removal that costs 2 or less mana, they can somehow survive. Instant speed removal that costs 2 or less, and then they did. Well, Root Wall is huge. Down to 8 cards now. They double block Root Walla. And kill it. I kill... Probably have to kill Bortuk. Oh, wow, Mesa Cavalier's huge. I can't attack with Root Wall and pump it, and play Cavalier in the same turn because they made me sack a land. Could have let them draw the card and try to mill them out, but I think we just drop Cavalier and hope they're finally out of removal. Again, they're drawing 2 a turn, but let's see. Even if they aren't out of removal, now they have to dig for that removal and get even closer to the self-mill death. 6 cards in their library now. There's a Brawler that does not remove it. Or block it. They need to draw perfectly off this Braids. I don't have an artifact, so they know they get to draw by sacking that. Vanguard I can't afford to do anything with, so we have to just Cavalier here. No removal, fingers crossed. They did not hit the removal. Pretty scary match there. They got down to 5 cards in library though, so even if they had removal, we had a decent shot at this point of milling them out. And just holding Root Wall as a blocker, 6/6 blocker here. Scary one. Really, really lucky that our opponent did not manage to draft like any reach creatures or flyers. The evasive threats being super important in the end of that game. Tachova plus Mesa Cavalier. Huge top deck from our opponent with the Braids there, hitting the tail swipe to get the Tachova so we don't have flying anymore. That was pretty incredible, but still get there a few turns later. Luckily for us, that'll be 3-0 to start off this quick draft. Well, I like the late game with the Tachova in this hand, but the lack of white is kind of a deal breaker here. I think we have to mulligan this one. Wow, this is worse. We have 10 white sources in the deck, so we've got more than a 1 in 4 every turn of hitting that white source, and I know I can double Root Walla early. Probably get rid of Phalanx, because I know I can Bone Rattle on 6, because I've got the green and black, definitely. And Bone Rattle is one of the strongest cards in the whole deck. Yeah, weirdly enough, I think I keep and get rid of Phalanx. Again, the mana is still pretty bad, but we know we can still double Root Wall up with this hand at least. We did hit the white source immediately, so paid off. We can play that Cavalier on 3 if we need it. Play all of our spells throughout the game. Playing against Boros with Steel Crusher to start it off. Snap Trade with Bone Rattle to bring this Root Walla back later. Make every block we can to make sure the game goes long. We should have... Oh, we definitely have the long game against most Boros decks on lock with Bone Rattle Tachiova. Resolute Reinforcements. Well, Root Wall is pretty good at blocking 1/1s. Phalanx. Root Wall, I'm not very good at blocking a Phalanx. We'll probably have to Leyline Binding that. Although Root Wall does turn into a 6/6, and Leyline Binding is instant speed, so I just pass. We're threatening to block with a 6/6. And then we can just Leyline Binding. Alright, Warbrute. Warbrute is actually, I think, more threatening than the Phalanx because it can enlist to being big enough to attack through Root Walla. Not if they don't have Phalanx. If they have Phalanx, Warbrute can attack as a 7/4, but with just 1/1s it attacks as a 4/4 trample. I still feel like Warbrute's generally a little bit scarier for us. So I'm gonna bind the Warbrutes. They are both threatening. We are 1 mana away from Bortuk Bone Rattle now. I can't hold up a Root Wall as a blocker if I play Cavalier. I'm just holding Root Wall up. Hope that our opponents not have Destroy Evils. That is an evil draw. They can make Root Wall's ability cost 3 more, which lets them start getting in with Phalanx. They could also make Bortuk cost or no, they make it cost 2 more, not 3 more, but that would still be enough. But making Bortuk cost 2 more is also annoying, but if we don't have a creature in turn by turn 6, we don't really care that much. Oh, that's so awkward. That's going to get us closer to Tachiova, but we won't be holding up Root Walla, but now they have so many creatures. I kind of like maybe Cavalier this turn, and next turn we know we can play, if we hit an untapped land, then we know we get to play Tachiova, an untapped land, and Weatherseed Treaty, so we get 1 3/3 guaranteed. It'll be a tapped 3/3, but a 3/3 nonetheless. And 7 lands total. It would be 1 away from Bone Rattle. If I play Cavalier, I'm taking 7. Taking Phalanx and Peacekeeper damage. If they draw a single removal spell, I'm in such a bad spot. But they haven't yet. This is awkward. Gotta play Cavalier. They attack us for 7. We go to 15. Like, we can block everything else. This way we're not so just stone dead to removal. Alright, so they hit us for 7. We'll take 7, go to 15, that's fine. That is A-okay. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to take another hit here, but I'm going to Tachiova Weatherseed Treaty. And we'll have a tapped 3/3. I think it's one of the forests. We've got a lot of those. 6, 7. If we hit a land, we can Bortuk next turn, so we could throw Tachiova under the bus to kill Peacekeeper. I'm at 15. I don't really want to take another 7. Could actually probably kill Phalanx if they don't have a trick. I feel like if they had a trick, they'd be attacking with everybody. So I think I actually double block Phalanx. If they have a trick here, we're going to be devastated, but again, I think that would just be an attack all if they do. So Techova's dead. Okay. We do have the land to bring back Techova, but it comes into play tapped, so not right now. But now they're down to a single 3/3 as an attacker, so we just start chipping in with Cavalier, and we've got plenty blocks all day with everything else. And we Bone Rattle Techova back next turn. Okay, this is some shenanigans. If it's +2/+1 to everybody, then this is still a great block. We still kill that, and we don't lose Root Wall, we just lose the forest. This would make that block worse because we would lose the Sapperling forever. If it's a single trick here, they only win one of these combats. If it's not +2/+1 to everybody, that means it's something that's going to target one of their creatures. They're going to win one combat here and lose the other two pretty badly. So unless they somehow double trick here, but didn't play one last turn. Okay, so a single trick to have Baird win the fight, which means that they will start getting 1/1s in the end step. That's pretty fine. Kill everything else. Yeah, lose the forest so we don't get to Bone Rattle is rough. But still, okay, well, we do get to Bone Rattle. Oh my god, I didn't even need the forest. Oops. That's a pretty big oops. We just lost out on another 3/3 of value. Wow, we really didn't need the forest. Oh, because the Peacekeeper died! Oh my god, that was so loose. The Peacekeeper died, so I didn't need to play that land, because I didn't need to pay the tax anymore, so I could have had another 3/3 here. If we lose the game, that could definitely be a contributing factor. That was really bad of a line. Forgot it doesn't work like the Elite Spellbinder. It's always really frustrating when they print two cards that do very, very similar things, but just different enough that you get really hard punished when you play as if it were the other card. Because Elite Spellbinders, even if you kill the Spellbinder, the card is just forever going to cost 2 more. But that's just not how that one works. If you kill the Peacekeeper, the card doesn't cost 2 more anymore. That's brutal. Ooh. Destroy Evil is pretty great here. They don't draw into Heroic Charge. We have a good shot here. If they draw into Heroic Charge, we're probably going to die. If my opponent chooses to cast something immediately, I can't respond. See, I'm in full control mode. If they just cast something, I can't stop them from doing it. They're going to get some value no matter what. Unfortunately, it's just how Magic works. I can't destroy Evil this until they've already cast a thing. So, they get the Steel Crusher back for value, but we're definitely killing the Paragon. Alright, so we're just sitting here crossing our fingers that they do not draw Heroic Charge still. That Bone Rattle line was so loose, they would have taken, I think, 9 more damage by now. I think they would just be dead by now. 6 more damage at the least. They would have taken 6 more damage by now. But I'm pretty sure it's been 3 turns that I would have been attacking with another 3/3 at this point. And literally we would have just won already. If I played around the Peacekeeper correctly. Prayer of Binding's a huge draw. 1 more combat and we are there. Unless they kill Techova. I can Prayer of Binding their Prayer of Binding. So that if they have 1 removal spell, it's still not enough. Send in a single Steel Crusher. They gain 2 life if it goes to the graveyard from the battlefield. There's no artifacts for them to sack it to. So I think I want that to not die. So I take the 5, and if they do something that would threaten lethal, I just exile it. But I just take it so that they don't gain life, and then I Prayer of Binding their Prayer of Binding, so if their plan is to remove Techova or something, they're still dead. Because it's still 5 flying damage. Oh my god. I forgot we have 2 Prayer Bindings here. Alright. Almost threw that game in the garbage bin. Had my opponent drawn a heroic charge there, I'm pretty sure we would have died and it would have been completely self-imposed. Because I forgot, I didn't realize that the Bortuk was no longer getting taxed when the Peacekeeper went to the grave. So we really need to keep that in mind. I think I've made the same mistake against that card before. I'm pretty sure I've made like the exact same mistake against that card before, so as much as I say I'll learn from that mistake, I probably won't. I'll try to heavily keep that in mind in like the Arena Open coming up, but honestly, Brothers War's like 1 month away, so I will probably not play against the Anointed Peacekeeper enough to remember that, but hopefully I will. Hopefully I won't make that mistake again. We'll see. It's going to be 4-0 now, a really great start to this quick draft. This is where a Premier Draft would be in the value already, but we need to find a couple more wins to be up in value in quick draft. But let's see how we do heading into game 5. All right, here we are in game 5. Opponents on the play, but hopefully we will be the one in the aggressive position with a curve out of Knight of Dawn's Light into Cavalier into Phalanx. If they can only kill one of our 3 creatures, Phalanx is a guaranteed 4-drop, so really nice 2-3-4 curve. See if it works out for us. Opponent starts with Contaminated Aquifer. We draw an additional creature that's going to not fit into the curve perfectly, but if they kill none of our creatures, we can play that and Phalanx on turn 4. So it might work out. I think I play the Marsh first. Terra Sunder is slightly cheaper than Techova, so we might need the black source before we need the blue source. And we play mostly white sources here, but I do want 1 green down, I think. Drop the Knight, cross our fingers and hope it does not die. Cross your fingers, hope not to die. Academy Wall. Alright, we got walls over here. Well, we'll try to go wide around those walls with an Argivian Cavalier to spread this board state around. The Cavalier also one of the most likely threats to actually attack with 5 power because of its enlist ability. 4 mana from our opponent. They are on Grixis, blue, red, and black. Phyrexian Espionage, draw 2. They also get to draw a card, discard a card off the Academy Wall, so some really nice card draw and card selection for our opponent. Helping them dig into whatever outs they're looking for. This is where that Faith Bonder would have come in handy, but we drew another 2-drop here. So I would actually rather go Herbalist and Phalanx than Faith Bonder and Phalanx, because I want the highest power creatures here. Although Faith Bonder having Enlist is nice. Actually, no, I think that was probably wrong. This was probably the opportunity we actually wanted to just Faith Bonder and Phalanx, even though Herbalist technically has more power on board. The Faith Bonder could enlist into being a 5-power creature, so I could attack with a 5-power Cavalier and a 5-power Faith Bonder, and then they can't just like stop any damage with the Academy Wall for free, like they're doing here. Although it might add up to more damage to just attack with everybody instead of trying to stack up like a big enlist monster. But yeah, we could attack with a 5-power Cavalier by buffing Knight and then enlisting, and then attack with a 5-power Faith Bonder by enlisting Phalanx. That was my theoretical plan there. Again, probably not actually necessary. If they play a Frostfist Strider, then yeah, getting a big Cavalier is going to be necessary, so we'll do that. It's got to be 5 power to attack into the Academy Wall. And don't want to just throw a creature into the Frostfist Strider, so let's buff the Knight and then play Mesa Cavalier. Opponent has to choose if they want to take 5 or trade their Frostfist Strider off. They could also chump the damage with the Academy Wall, but I'd get to keep the Cavalier if they want to do that. I'm pretty okay with any of these things. Alright, looks like they're going to take the 5. Let's drop a flyer now. Get over the Frostfist Strider. Opponent is down to 12, but they do have the card advantage here. 5 cards in hand. Soaring Drake. That will lock out the Mesa Cavalier from doing much of anything. And Yavimaya Steel Crusher is a great card to trade into the Argivian Cavalier. Unfortunately, since I have to play a tapped land here, I don't get to buff Knight big enough to kill the Academy Wall. I could blow up the Academy Wall with Destroy Evil, but it feels like it'll probably be better to do that to the Frostfist Strider. That will let me attack with Phalanx, and Phalanx will end up killing the Soaring Drake. 4 mana to Destroy Evil here on the Strider. I wish this beachfront were untapped. Could Destroy Evil and play a Faith Bonder or buff a Knight. Double buff of Knight makes it a 4/4 first strike here. They can double block with Drake Steel Crusher. I would kill Drake. Steel Crusher would only do 2 damage and the Knight would live. The only way they kill Knight on an attack is blocking with Strider. So I could go Knight and Phalanx here. And that could clear their flyer out of the way, but then we have a Phalanx engrave, which is rough. Cavalier can definitely get in. Just has to trade with Steel Crusher. That's probably worth it just to get things out of the way here. Whittle this board state down. Yeah, now they can't like double block Phalanx and kill Cavalier with Steel Crusher. If they want to kill Phalanx, they have to 2/3/2/2 on Phalanx, then they can't block Cavalier well. Or they block Cavalier with the Academy Wall, I guess. Yeah, I guess they block Cavalier with Academy Wall. Still feel like this is the best attack we've got here, and it lets us scry one and set up our draws. Dig for some of our big late game threats, like a Bortuck Bone Rattle. That makes this attack pretty beautiful, and whatever dies, we'll just bring it back next turn. You gotta burn it all down to build it back up. Right, so they are going to trade the Steel Crusher for the Cavalier. And it looks like we're going to double buff the Knight of Dawn's Light here, because they only have 1 mana up, so we know that we can just win the fight with the Knight. I like this block a lot for us, unless they have a Shore Up. Their 1 mana could be for Shore Up here. That would be so bad for us. Yeah, they have a Shore Up. I probably should have just... Well, there's nothing I can do at this point. Because if I try to destroy Evil the Frostfist Strider, they would Shore Up in response. Okay, unless it's exactly timely interference. But I think I made the best play I could have done. Because if it were Shore Up, they'd get us either way. And losing out on Destroy Evil, I think, is worse. For us. Yeah, that was a pretty huge bummer they had a combat trick there. The combat tricks are just nasty in this format. They got to draw a card out of that interaction as well. Pretty smart block by our opponent, though, forcing us to dump all our mana into that. So they play around our own combat tricks, if we had any. Balmor, that's horrifying. We're at 25 life, which is good. But Balmor does 1,000,000 damage off of almost nothing. Balmor has won a lot of games really quickly Bone Rattle for Cavalier, I think. More enlist. Phalanx just runs into the Academy wall. Cavalier just runs into the Drake. There's just no good attacks right now. They have a trick in hand of some kind. I'm just gonna send in the Phalanx and see what happens. They probably just block with Academy Wall, but maybe they'll try to do some tricks here and spend some mana, and then they can't counter Bone Rattle if they have an Essence Scatter in hand. If they spend all their mana right now, or some of their mana right now. They're really thinking on this one. This is a trade I'm A-okay with. No Essence Scatter, fingers crossed. Alright. Phalanx would go to hand, Cavalier would go right to board. I think I'd like to Cavalier right to board here. We got the 4/4 out of the way and we have a Destroy Evil to get the 0/5 out of the way so we can start attacking with everything with 3 or more power. Which isn't perfect. I don't think I want to play this land in case I hit Tachiova. Actually, I need a double green to play Tachiova. That's rough. If I draw Tachiova, I don't get to hold on to this because I have to play Forest to play Tachiova anyway. So I guess we play this land. So it's double green and a blue for Tachiova. Yep. Alright. Do I send in a 6/2 Cavalier? I guess I can just send in a 6/2 Cavalier. Keep the Destroy Evil still for now. Trade into the Soaring Drake, maybe? Faith Bonder's going to be a great play this turn. This game might have gone a lot differently if I just played the Faith Bonder turn 2 instead of the Herbalist. I think Faith Bonder probably would have been more impactful. Although we have gained life and scryed a few times. Alright, trades. Unless they want to use a trick, they do not. Here's a Faith Bonder. All of our 1/1s and 2/1s are pretty bad against Balmor. Well, I guess they top decked the Essence Scatter this turn. That's pretty rough. Bone Rattle was better than the Faith Bonder here, but not by that much. Faith Bonder is actually pretty great on this board. So that getting countered is still a pretty big bummer. Ooh, they had to discard a Shore Up, so their hand must be just gas. They discarded a Shore Up there. They are running low on creatures. Dragon Whelp. It's so awkward, but I feel like I have to just destroy evil this wall in their end step so I can keep attacking. I have nothing that can get in past the Academy wall now. But if I blow it up, at least Bone Rattle gets to send in and trade into Dragon Whelp, whittle the board down a little more. If we could draw into one of our Take Up the Shields, they would be great in this matchup. We haven't drawn either yet. I think I'm going to wait, because if I draw that, it's really cheap. Leyline Binding, also really cheap and very good. I'm going to see if I can blow up Academy Wall right now, and then maybe get them to double block Bone Rattle to try to kill it here. Because on board, I only kill one of the creatures. I'm going to Urtai Scorn to counter me killing the Academy Wall. That's pretty fine by me. A little annoying. Is that Leyline Binding an Academy Wall now? Not yet. Because I won't attack this turn anyway, because they cast a spell. They could run out of cards. The blue-red deck has a lot of cantrips, and if I keep the pressure on them enough to where they can't ever get in an aggressive position, they have to keep blocking, they can just run out of cards. I've ran out of cards in a blue-red deck before. At a draft at Locals. Friday Night Magic draft. My opponent just had so much removal. That, like, yeah, I was like playing all these good tempo plays with my geysers and they were drawing cards, and it was timely interference to kill their creature, draw a card, trying to get all this damage, and I'm chipping in, getting them down to like 4 or 5, but they just keep running me out of creatures with their removal, and I'm just trying to draw into more creatures, and then I look at my deck and I have 5 cards because I've played so many cantrips. So, it can happen. And we are in a position right now where they can't attack us too much. Hello, electrostatic infantry. Tolarian Geyser. Good card. They're going to mill one for fun. Then they're killing a token and drawing a card. Might have to kill infantry. That's going to be a... Well, it's only a 2-3 right now, but it could be bigger later. Can Leyline Binding the Whelp slow them down a lot in terms of them getting any aggro on us, but then I'm still never getting through this Academy Wall. But I don't think I can even target Academy Wall at this point because I'll have to get rid of infantry as well soon enough. Yeah, I think we just want to slow them down from killing us as much as possible. Have that second-hand mill plan. That secondary mill strategy. So let's slow them down. Okay, we are going to keep this land for Techova. They only have 3 power on the board, so I can attack with Bone Rattle, but then they block with Wall. None of my cards do anything. Herbalist would let me scry one, but then it just dies. 25-12. Opponent has to draw significantly better than me, but Academy Wall helps that happen a lot. Discard a Micromancer. And Fire NATO being the first top deck is pretty dang good. If they have any instant or sorcery hand, they ruin my combat. I don't think I can block. That means they definitely don't have an instant or sorcery in hand. They did not send an infantry. Come on, deck. Let's get some action. Not halfway through the deck yet. 9. 8 lands left out of 22. Less than half the deck is lands. Pretty decent odds at some action here. They're down to 10 cards in their library. Amplifier to kill a token. Hit for 1. There we go. They have 1 card in hand. If it is another scatter, I will probably scoop. It is not another scatter. Techova is going to absolutely change the course of this game then. They're down to 7 now. They'll be facing 3 flyers. I guess they could always just draw into another burn spell, and the game will proceed as previously. They just killed Techova. I think Techova was literally the best draw in our deck. That was just complain and you will be rewarded type stuff. I mean, we have Destroy Evil, double Take Up the Shield, double Root Walla, Tear Asunder, Weatherseed Treaty, Prayer of Binding, and Shalai's Acolyte. We actually have a lot of very good draws, but those are worse than Techova. Those are not as good as Techova, but that's like 10 really good draws still left in there. So not that unreasonable. Yeah, Micromancer's pretty devastating. Just force Techova to block. How good would Take Up the Shield have been this matchup? Incredibly is the answer. They could attack with infantry and then they don't have to lose a creature to kill Techova. But I guess infantry is one of their better blockers on the ground. But if they attack with both, I'm gonna I'm gonna make the block that actually kills a creature. Would have been good with a Tachova down. Definitely not without. They have 6 cards in their library. They now have 5 after an impulse. Draw discard. They have 4 cards in their library. This electrostatic infantry is way too big now, though. I do have 4 removal spells still in the deck to blow it up. If I blow that up, I might be able to mill them out. And they have 4 cards left now. They have to kill us in... bounce the land. It's very bad for us. Alright, we're out of creatures. That's very funny, Arena. Arena heard me asking for Take Up the Shield, and they decided to give it to me after all my creatures were gone. Well, that was rough. Very good blue-red tempo deck for my opponent. Would have had to draw pretty well to beat that, and we did not. Drew pretty average. And then pretty bad at the end. Alright, here we are, game 6, I believe, 4-1, something like that, in this quick draft. Had a pretty bummer loss last round against a blue-red tempo control deck that grinded out for like 45 minutes, probably got edited down quite a bit. There was a whole lot of think tanking from both players. And we're against blue-red again, which is not a great matchup for us, because they have the counter spells for our big impactful late game plays and the bounce spells to kill our tokens, which is really rough. And Timely Interference is just a disgustingly good card in this archetype. Should have blocked with the Sapperling, or the Soldier. Or I could have blocked with the Soldier. Not necessarily that I should have. I probably should have, though. So I actually kill the Amplifier there. I'm a little on tilt after last round. I think I played that too fast without thinking. It's not a good block. Do not have a lot we can do right now. It's literally the exact same deck. Need a black source pretty badly. Okay, well that... Okay, it's a significantly better deck than the one last round. Last round we did not see a Shivan Devastator, but good thing Destroy Evil is a card. Because my lord. Okay, still no black source for the Terra Sunder, but we can attack with everybody and we can pump with Vanguard here if we want. Depending on how they block. If they don't block, I'll just play a Cavalier. Pass. Valerian Terror. We really need the black source now. I think we have 4 in the deck. Ooh, that's interesting. I'm 1 mana away from that actually being a good card. So I need to be able to buff with Vanguard and take up the shield. I I guess with Cavalier I attack with a 5/5 Cavalier. I can pump with Vanguard to make the Cavalier big enough to trade into Whelp, so this attack doesn't look suspicious at all, and then we take up the shield for value. I think it's better to take over the skies than it is the ground. So if they do block Terror on Cavalier, then I'm going to choose to take up the shield on the Flyer and not the ground one. I hate that I can't call them Cavalier, because they're both Cavaliers. Another Tolarian Terror. Alright, well, Mesa Cavalier still gets to get in. Which is very nice. Faith Bonder is a good draw. The more the merrier when it comes to these, excuse me, enlist creatures. There's more ways to attack into the Tolarian Terrors. Kill them in 2 turns if I activate the Vanguard, but I don't have the mana to do that and play Faith Bonder, so I think I'm going to play Faith Bonder. I might have been wrong. Might have been better to just dome them for 4 and wait. Not try to do anything on the ground. Balduvian Berserker, okay, that's fine. Another land, they're flooding out a little bit. Definitely good for us. Shalai's Acolyte is a draw and a half. They have something in hand here too, so they could be some kind of trick, so I'm not as interested in sending in anything on the ground against a trick. Okay, it's an Impulse. They're going to try to dig for removal here. That would have buffed the Amplifier, so they would block Faith Bonder with Amplifier there, and then I'd have to use Vanguard and not play Acolyte. So pretty happy with that attack, and then we hope they didn't Impulse into Scatter, and they're pretty much locked out of the game unless they have double removal. Balmor is good, but I don't think good enough against 2 flyers. They need another card here. Battlewing Mystic. Alright, 2 flyers is good enough, especially when they draw 2 extra cards. I do have 6 attackers against 5 blockers though, so if I attack all and buff with Vanguard on board, I win. But that's a little bold of an attack to try to make, because then if they have a burn spell, they can ruin my day. So I think I would rather just attack with the flyers and force the chumps here. They're just going to not block, they're just over it. Fair enough. That was looking really bad at the start. They had a really nice curve with the blue-red deck. A lot of the same very good cards that we saw in our last matchup, but luckily for us, they flooded out a bit late in the game, and we kept getting some good action. The take up the shield in the early game was pretty pivotal, kind of showing off how good that would have been in the other round. Terra Sunder not being available was a bit of a bummer, but other than that, everything else we drew was pretty sweet, served its role well. The Vanguard, just the threat of activating that effect was always quite nice too, so pretty lucky game there. I will absolutely take it. Alright, here we are. I don't even know anymore. Pretty late into this quick draft. Pretty bad hand, need green badly, and we do not have it. I think I have to mulligan even though I'm on the draw. Only access to a Prayer of Binding. Yeah, unfortunate. Definitely will keep this. We've got green, white, and black. Get rid of one of these 2-drops, probably Faith Bonder, so we can get some scrying going on with the Herbalist. Although Faith Bonder has been kind of impressive late game. But with turn 1 Phoenix Trick, that is an aggressive start. I believe they mulliganed down to 6 as well. Okay, they're on Boros, no turn 2 play. We'll play the Herbalist. Alright, red, white, and green. Scout the Wilderness. Get the 4th color of mana here, maybe? It'd be really weird to see a domain deck running Phoenix Trick. Okay, so it is Boros with a green splash, or maybe Selesnya with a red splash. Something like that. Right, I mean, we send in the Herbalist. The Phoenix Chick can't block. Keep that on top. It's a fine draw. Play the Vanguard or the Cavalier. I'd rather play the Vanguard here. With Take Up the Shield in hand, I'd rather just be getting as aggressive as possible than setting up more mana with Weatherseed Treaty. Okay. We have a lot of removal spells in our deck, and we need to find them immediately. Take Up the Shield doesn't get us there. We need to Weatherseed Treaty. If we don't kill Rith, it's going to start spitting out extra 4/4 flyers, and even if it doesn't, it'll kill us incredibly quickly. So we just have to draw removal. We've got like 6 or 7 in our deck, so odds aren't that terrible. Let's see if we can get there. Alright, down to 12. Queen all in all. That's super fine if I can just kill Rith. Gain a bunch of life with Take Up the Shield soon enough. I think I'd rather Faith Bond or Cavalier for this turn. We can definitely send Vanguard into the Queen. They only get to the bonus dragon if they kill something with excess damage during their turn. So if I trade into Queen, that's super fine. I'm threatening to buff with Vanguard's ability. So I don't think they block. This lets me try to scry to that removal and not find it. I think this is literally like, if I find removal, I win. If I don't, I lose. I think I just buff with a Vanguard here. Because I'd like to Take Up the Shield off of a +4/+4 next turn. That'll give us even more time. To find removal. Alright, take 6. Down to 7. Kill Vanguard, that's fine. It's A-okay, I've got many more threats if I can just kill Rith. Oh, I guess it's not fine because they get the bonus dragon. Well, I still didn't draw any removal spells, and when I do gain enough life to stay in the game for one final draw step. I can't pay the ward because it's ward 2. That's so frustrating. We got removal checked and we lost the removal check. Again, that exact same hand except -1. Any card in our hand, you replace it with a Destroy Evil and we win handedly. Because if we had Destroy Evil at the start, they never would have gotten that dragon. We have all this stuff to keep playing. They're out of cards at this point. They've got 1 card at this point. Frustrating. 5 and 2 it is. Alright, on the play here in round 8. We are 5 and 2. No green source, or sorry, no white source is a bit rough, which means we're going to have to play a little slowly here. We got to wait for this Weatherseed Treaty. But because we have the Weatherseed Treaty, I'm going to keep it here. And use that treaty to pull out the plains. We did naturally draw plains. I think I would yet again, with Take Up the Shield in hand, rather just start getting some high power creatures down, to start sending in, and if they try to throw any blocks in there, we Take Up the Shield, or just use Vanguard's ability itself. Playing against green, red, black with Sprouting Goblins, so almost definitely some very domain-centric nonsense going on over there. I have to try to outrace all their big stuff. Yep, island it is. That's 4 colors there. We have a Bone Rattle later on. We might actually just trade here. And play Cavalier. Actually, probably Weatherseed Treaty this turn. Get closer to that Bone Rattle, especially if we trade. If I Weather Seed Treaty this turn, I'm guaranteed 5 mana next turn, which is enough to play Cavalier and take up the shield, or Cavalier and destroy evil. And if I hit another land next turn, then I have Bone Rattle up. I actually kind of don't want to get into combat then if I can hold up take up the shield somewhat freely next turn. Get the second plains here. We've got the blue source, we've got the black source, we've got 2 green. Sacred Peaks to play for the turns. They can get a tap land out of the way, and then a Karn's Silex that can blow up all the small stuff. Leyline Binding, I can blow up the Karn's Silex for 2 mana. Now I threaten to just use Vanguard's ability to win this combat. Alright, I guess they could just get to Silex next turn then. That's probably fine. We get that out of the way and don't have to deal with it later, and I get to hold Leyline Binding to deal with an actual threat. Silex just a 2-for-1 here. Kills Vanguard and Treaty. The Sapperling just came out of the treaty, so it's kind of like just killing 2 cards. Okay. Still playing Miria's Outrider. We can attack into that with Vanguard's ability and with Take Up the Shield. Now I might actually Leyline Binding the Karn Silex. Let's make both of these big enough to attack an Outrider and get a ton of damage in here. Use Silex to kill a 1/1 here. I'm so tempted to just use this and just hit them for 6 and trade. But this is probably better. Keep our threats on the board to keep attacking in. Now we have a 4-power creature attacking that I'm threatening to make a 5-power creature off of its own ability. We need to play something really big to block here, which I can just destroy evil on and still cast another creature next turn. Feels like a pretty good line for next turn. No creatures. Well, now they just have to remove this Vanguard. I'm not going to dump any mana into this ability. Just going to play creatures post-combat. They have a second Wrath effect that'll be pretty devastating. So we might want to play around them having a Prayer Binding or something to get rid of our Leyline Binding. So I actually kind of want to just pass. And I'm already threatening 5 more damage next turn. I have their life total these next 2 attacks. So I just play around them. Yeah, I play around them getting the Silex back by not putting more creatures on board, and now I can just Prayer Binding it again. They have a Broken Wings too. They don't have a white mana up, so it can't be a second to destroy evil. They have Terra Sunder too? Well, got rid of all that removal then, I guess. They're kind of, again, just killing 1 card here. They're just killing Vanguard. The Sapperling was just an addition to the Weather Seed Treaty. It's not really a full card. So it still doesn't feel that bad. That could have gone way worse if we just tapped some, or just dropped some creatures out. Another Take Up the Shield is beautiful. Let's get our stuff on board and pass turn. Still got a Bortuk waiting for late game. Niall, that's going to get destroyed ASAP. Yep, so I get to attack him with Cavalier here. No Bone Rattle this turn, just get damage in. Have their life total, and still hold up Take Up the Shield against removal. Alright, Prodigy's fine. Is making that Beast Caller pretty groovy. Now we only have a Vanguard to get off of Bone Rattle, so that's not particularly great. hidden with the beast collar. All right, bold. I like it. And pass turn. Could have held on to that in case I drew Techova. Just send in the clowns. We're already just winning this combat, so that all just resolves. What is the plan here? They didn't want to hold up Beast Collar to block. 1 mana away from Bone Rattling and holding up Take Up the Shield. I don't like that. Most definitely better to just Bone Rattle here. Did they find a Wrath off of Prodigy but can't afford to cast it yet? A second Wrath after a Karn Silex? What are the odds? I guess Beastclaw would just be a chump for the night, so that could explain it. Yeah, I'll go Bone Rattle. It's not necessarily another Wrath for my opponent. Because they could have just attacked with Beastclaw because it would just be a chump block anyway, so just hold the 1 chump blocker back. It's mildly bold, because then if I had removal they would just die, but if I had removal they'd just die anyway, so that's probably the reasoning there. Yeah. Just trying to decipher the contents of the unrevealed hand of my opponent there to know if it's safe to Bone Rattle or not. Magic the Gathering is a complex game. Luckily for us, our opponent seems to have had nothing, and we will be 6-2 now. Heading into the final boss, win or lose, we got to play as many games of Magic as possible today, so a pretty good run through this quick draft. We're also up 100 gems no matter what. See how it all ends as we head into the final round. Alright, final game of Magic. Is this a good enough hand to take us all the way? Hopefully on the play it is. Turn 2 Root Wall. If they can't kill it, we get to start holding up, take up the shield to protect it from then on. A nice big Phalanx for later in the game. Let's hope for the best here. See what our opponent's on, and we'll see what we draw into and how that affects the game. Turn 2 Root Wall, turn 3 Beachfront to make the Root Wall even better. We're going to have all 4 of our lands for domain. We do not have mountains in this deck. Green and white play their own Root Walla, where we will offer the Root Walla trade, but secretly just take up the shield if they block. Slam dunk that take up the shield here. Try to keep the pressure on. Next turn attacking with a potential 7/7 Root Walla if we have nothing else to cast. We have an additional Root Walla to cast. Kind of a hard question between if it's better to dome my opponent for 7 or play another Root Walla. I feel like it's honestly probably better to play another Root Walla, because then if they have removal for this Root Walla, such as Destroy Evil, which would have worked if I activated the effect, I can still play Phalanx next turn. Whereas I couldn't have if they killed this Root Walla, then I played a creature. Then I played a land. So yeah, now I still get to Phalanx here because I still have a creature out for the 5. Unfortunately, it's exile removal, so Bone Rattle's not going to get back that Root Walla. But if they kill this Root Walla, Bone Rattle will get this one back. Or if they kill the Phalanx, Bone Rattle will put Phalanx in my hand. We are running low on cards already. We are just dumping everything on the board here. Deathbloom Gardener is not fun in the slightest for us, but that gives us something great to do with our Vortex, so we'll just send in. See what they want to trade with. They're going to trade with Phalanx and let Root Walla in. Fair enough. But that is worse for us because we don't get to put the Phalanx right back on the board. Still definitely the play. Phalanx should be cheap enough after a Cavalier to be able to cast Cavalier and Phalanx next turn. Techova for our opponents. They do not have 7 lands yet, so that's pretty okay by me. And a Phyrexian Rager. They will have 7 lands next turn, and that will be a problem. I'd like to hold the mana to buff this Root Walla. I think I just attack with Bone Rattle here, though. Because I can't hold up the 4 for Root Walla and cast either of these. And if I attack with both and they end up throwing Rager onto Root Walla, I'll have to bump Root Walla, or buff Root Walla, which means I'll play no more creatures, which I think is bad. So I think I attack with Bone Rattle and just get 4 damage in or kill Rager. So we get 4 damage in. Then I get to play both creatures. I don't think the threat of activation is actually great there, because they just take that bluff and throw the Rager under the bus, and then I can't cast anything that turn. I probably should have held that Tangled Islet in case I drew Techova. I keep forgetting to do that. Hopefully it doesn't matter here. But yeah, I did have double green and blue on the board already, so I didn't need to play the Islet. Tura Kenrid. This is looking really unfortunate. Prayer of Binding is helpful. I can kill one of these threats that takes over the game. I think Techova does it better than Tura does, because every deck has more lands than instants and sorceries, and Tura just spits out 1/1s. Techova makes 3/3s, so I think we need to Prayer of Binding Techova. But I might just get into combat first and see if I can find a nice 2-for-1 in the process. That would be pretty nasty. Attack with everything that has at least 3 power. Not attacking with Root Wall is a little suspicious here, but hopefully it's no biggie. Actually, probably should have sent Root Wall in as well. But then they just throw, again, if they throw Rager on Root Wall, it's just bad for us. This is so tempting. If they don't have a trick here, though, we kill Tura and Rager and exile Techova. I think I just let this happen. See if they have a trick. No trick. Get rid of Techova now? Now they have pretty much nothing. Nothing on board. They could have good cards in hand. They're at 6, though. And they're going to lose 2 life off this Shadow Prophecy, down to 4. Nothing to hold up here, so we definitely get to start attacking with Root Walla again, which single-handedly presents lethal, as does Bone Rattle. If either Root Walla or Bone Rattle hit them, they're dead, so they have to chump both. Sojourner means it's not a chump. Cavalier is a great draw. We have exactly enough mana to attack with Root Walla and still cast this Cavalier. So what happens if we attack Bone Rattle, Root Walla? They block Bone Rattle with Sojourner and kill it. Root Walla kills the forest. I hit them for 1 with the Soldier. They're at 3 life. If I attack with just Root Walla, then they block Root Walla with both. I buff Root Walla to 6/6 status, kill the Sojourner, but they still have the 3/3. So I either lose Root Walla and they lose Sojourner, or I lose Bone Rattle and they lose 3/3. I think it's better to lose Bone Rattle here. And kill the 3/3 than it is to lose Root Walla and kill the Sojourner. And Mesa Cavalier is obviously pretty ridiculous, or pretty huge on this board state, pretty important. So that is nice. They have a Vine Wall, which just grabs a land. That does not help them get any outs. So Island it is. An Elfheim Worm does not have reach. So 2 hits from Cavalier can do it. Terra Sunder gets rid of 1 blocker, which does not find lethal. If I had 8 mana here, I could Terra Sunder and I could use Root Walla's ability so I could ruin their double block. But since I can't do that, Root Walla trades 1/1 into one of the big creatures. It's probably actually worth it, because then I can Terra Sunder the Prayer of Binding. So I think I do attack both. Buff Root Walla to have Root Walla trade into whatever big creature here. One of them. Probably the Vigilance one. And then we're going to Terra Sunder their Prayer of Binding in the end step. So just get another Root Walla to get attacking with. Or if they play their own enchantment-based removal to kill the flyer, then we'll Terra Sunder to save it. But it looks like they didn't find anything to deal with the flyer, so we are going to be 7-2 to end that draft off. Another great quick draft for us. Pretty happy with that result. Really weird draft yet again, as we see with the triple question mark being the deck's name. Pick 11, Wingmantle Chaplain is absurd. How late every Take Up the Shield wins is absurd. I probably should have been playing all three. One of our 2 losses, Take Up the Shield, would have been incredibly good, and I don't remember the other loss, but it probably would have been good in that loss as well. So maybe not running all the Take Up the Shields was a bit of a mistake. We could have ran more removal with the Citizen's Arrest, but I'm kind of happy with the amount of removal we had. Oh yeah, I remember the other loss now. It was against the Mythic Rare Dragon, and we really just needed to draw removal. But again, we had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 removal spells in the deck. I guess maybe with a 7th removal spell we would have had a better chance of winning that game, but every other game we had plenty of removal. And having all just the single white removal made it really easy to cast. I'm pretty happy with the deck makeup overall. I could, again, Take Up the Shield was great. I could see running another, and I could also see running another removal spell, but I really didn't want to lower the creature count too much, and we're already down to 14 here. So we also saw how bad Take Up the Shield is as a draw when you don't have creatures left. We saw that in the blue-red matchup that we lost there, so pretty debatable either way. Faithbonder actually was a pretty big overperformer. I probably should have put it on the board earlier, but there were a lot of matchups where just getting enlist creatures to be big enough to attack into 5/5s, 0/5s, and 4/4s was pretty important. So just creatures with enlist were good. Obviously, Techove and Bone Rattle were both insane. The Argivian Cavaliers were great. The Vanguard is generally just a pretty filler, pretty mediocre card, but it was pretty important, pretty huge in most of our games. Yep, and obviously Root Wall was always great. So yeah, liked the deck a lot in general. It did exactly what we thought it would do, exactly what we planned for it to do, which was nice aggressive start backed up by a couple Take Up the Shields, and then a lot of removal spells to clear out all of their threats, and all of the big domain, huge win conditions at the end. So great stuff from the deck. We'll take our 7 wins, our 950 gems, and our 2 packs, and we'll run away with them. But that is going to end today's draft. As always, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to let the YouTube algorithm know to send you some more of these videos in your recommended feeds. And once again, thank you very much for watching. I will see you all again very soon for some more Magic Arena.